Hi, family. Hi, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. It is your girl, Rain Culture here. So, today is a special day. I have brought you a special talk. It's called the Babiz Art Talk. If you are a lover of art, for all those that love art, like this is your video. You are not at the wrong place or watching a wrong video. Like, this is your video. So much information has been shared, so much information is going to be shared. Like, watch this video from the start to the end. Like, this is your video. Trust me, if you want to grow in art, if you want to progress in art, this is your video, because there is so much information that is going to be shared by beautiful people that are going to share their experience and what they've gone through and what they have seen out there. Yeah, so our moderator for the babies art talk is going to be Chaza, Matakala, and the other people that are going to get involved in the discussion are going to be Gladys, Kalichini, and Professor Kasanda. So look out for these people, look out for the information that they are going to bring out. Trust me, you will learn a lot. Watch from the start to the end, you will enjoy. So this is your girl. Yes, this is your girl. If you are new on my channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you. Thank you so much for watching my videos. If you have not yet subscribed, please support me by subscribing, like, and share, and leave a comment. For I'm on a road to 1K subscribers. Yes, we are promoting, we are bringing authentic things as the Rain Couch family. We only bring you real things. So
And these art talks are built up in the same framework of the babiz show that is on the ground floor here. And we hope that we'll be having them every week so that we can discuss various topics concerning the welfare and development of the arts. And we are very grateful to all of you who are here and those who are watching us on YouTube or on any live stream. This afternoon, we are blessed to have a few of these ladies here. On my right is Chaze Matakala, who's going to moderate the event. And on my left here is Gladys Kalichini, who is a PhD candidate at Rhodes University and the winner of a number of awards that she's going to take us to. And indeed, we cannot feel blessed without the likes of Professor Kasanda, who is a long-time academician, who is going to also help us to guide, what we are doing here. And I'd like to introduce the intern curatorial person, Mr. Mwapemumbi, who is actually gotten acceptance in Sweden for curatorial course, and is also going to Venice Biennale as a curatorial intern. So when this came up, we opted it in so that at least he's going to be able to take something from Zambia to Venice Biennale or Europe. So I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Mwapemumbi, please.
Thank you, Lloyd. So as not to preempt, Professor Kasanda, whom I will introduce first, I keep telling him, chasing since 2010, when he was obviously part of the UNZA faculties, and then thereafter, ZAWE making presentations. The very first art discussion forum I remember attending with the Arts and Culture Forums every Friday, sponsored by ZAWE at the Golf Hotel in Chainama. And I have been picking his brains ever since. He's an educationist, he's a policy maker, having been the permanent secretary of Ministry of Education in Zambia before, and he's an author and proponent of creative and innovative approach to education in the very practice of arts itself. And having, I think, a bit of an interest that will get, I think, the rest of it as he begins, obviously, to lay on that role towards arts creativity. And next to him, obviously, is Chaze Matakala, as introduced. Allow me, please, to just read off very quickly a bit of her bio, which goes, Chaze Matakala is a multidisciplinary individual with a passion and drive in African affairs, visual culture, artistic expression. She was born in Canada to Zambian parents and raised in Mozambique. She went on to pursue her tertiary education at the University of Cape Town with a BA in Film and Media Studies, an honors degree in Heritage and Public Culture, culminating in her master's in philosophy, specializing in African studies. She's a well-published arts and culture writer for numerous regional and international publications, and she has presented aspects of her academic practice at several conferences in South Africa. Beyond her journalistic and academic writing, she also practices photography and filmmaking as creative modalities to translate intellectual theories across disciplines of gender studies, African studies, colonial theory, literary theory, and visual culture to the curious public. She is currently the subject manager of Literary Arts Program at Open Window University in Osaka. That's in Kamlonga, just on the other side. Her interests are rooted in archiving narratives that explore the intersection of creative practices, the philosophical, and the political. One of her, you could say, life as well as practice philosophies are that allow today to be beautiful. And you can find some of her work on her website. The domain name is Colonial Daydreams, as one with colonialdaydreams.com. And some of her other work you can find online as part of her Master in Philosophy of African Studies on the domain name Center for African Studies. That's about Ms. Chaze, and we are very glad and honored that you can be part of this conversation. She'll be our moderator, helping to split up the conversation in very interesting ways. Next to her, at the far end, and certainly not the least, allow also that I just...
I'd like to begin by asking, what do you think is necessary for us to develop the creative economy here in Zambia? I'll start with you, Professor.
What do I think?
What do you think is needed to develop the creative economy in Zambia? What are some of the missing pieces that you have identified that you think could really help to take things to the next level for us?
How many minutes do I have to answer the question?
As much time as
First of all, you need Zambians and the other people we work with to be creative. Because if I need a creative economy, then I need people who are creative, a human resource which is creative. But the question is, how does one become creative, become imaginative, become resourceful? Maybe that's really the major question. And I think in that way, we have to say together, what did other people do? Because we are not the first people to want to be creative. We have had nations since the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, name it, up to today, there are nations out there. The question is, how did they do what they did to move from one level to the next? Meaning there are two sides to this coin. The first side is there has to be knowledge acquisition. Knowledge acquisition. Maybe in Zambia sometimes we rush to want to develop knowledge. First acquire knowledge from others. There is history, their context. How did they do it? Because they are human like us. Once we know that, then we say, but we now need also to develop our own knowledge. Because you can't develop with foreign knowledge only. You need to blend it with local knowledge. So you say, okay, I have acquired this knowledge as a base to show me how others did it. But my context is different, my culture is different, my reality is different. So what knowledge do I need to move forward? And I think when I'm given chance later, I will show exactly how our colleagues did it so that we see where we are. But the key is knowledge acquisition is number one. The second one is knowledge development. The first one is called knowledge coming from external sources would be different from internal knowledge, which is called tacit knowledge. So you need both what is external and what is internal, and blend them, and you will know which side your bread is buttered.
Thank you very much. Gladys, would you answer the question as well from your perspective as an art practitioner? What do you think is necessary to develop the art economy in Zambia?
I agree. No, but I mean, of course, I really agree with what he's saying. And to add on to that, from my perspective, I would say I think there's also need to develop like a lot of conceptual knowledge around practice, you know, especially for the arts in these days or contemporary arts. It's not enough to just make the work. So you need to take some time to actually understand what you're saying and package how you want to say what you say, rather than just make the work.
Thank you for that. So I think that leads very well, both of what you've shared leads very well into how we can transform arts education in Zambia, right? Because you are currently pursuing your PhD at Rhodes University in South Africa, and maybe you could share with us what led you to have to pursue that degree outside of your home country.
When I was done with my Master of Fine Arts, I was very interested in going the academic route, of course, in my practice and also just in research general. But unfortunately, there wasn't anywhere where I can do it in Zambia. And in my case, it was also just much easier to continue it from the university where I already was, because I had the same supervisor in my master's that I have now. So it was, I think it was an okay way of continuing the process, because as the prof was explaining, like I think in my master's it was a lot about acquiring information and getting to know some of the stuff. And then by the time I was going into the PhD, I needed to be in a good university that would help me now conceptualize or know what to do with that information that I have gotten.
Thank you. And Professor, what can you say about the arts education in Zambia and how it could be? I know this is probably your field of expertise from what I understand, so what would you say needs to be done, and maybe you could share with us what are some of the policies that you have influenced and to what extent they've been implemented as well.
That's it all. Ladies and gentlemen, this question has many aspects to it, but I would say this. First of all, any education system needs to pay attention to learners' imagination, creativity, and innovativeness. Now, why is that important? Because if you look at the foundations of arts education, you discover that what we have had in Zambia is art more or less related to feeding the tourism industry. Sometimes I go to the arts we do here, and what do you find? This one has this, it is sculpted or done a carving of an elephant, that one a hippo, this one another hippo, buffalo. Then you say, now you are 15 artists doing the exposition here. How come all of you are just doing an elephant, a hippo? Do you think art really ends here? So the policies now, to come to your issue, the policies that we have regarding art are such that art is probably not treated at the same high level as science is treated. Meaning, we think that it is easier to develop using science and technology rather than starting with the art. Because European development, American development, and all these countries started with the arts. If you develop your arts, imagination starts with the arts. Going to the moon, going to Mars. When I was a schoolboy, as young as some of my colleagues here, we were looking at magazines, and you know what we read? Artists' impression of what the moon, when we go there one day, is like. That's in 1960s. Can you imagine? And it became true scientifically later, because the science is there to examine the order of things already created. But art reveals the nature of things still hidden. So you need to respect ideas first. Now, we don't have that in art. As I said, look around again what our art is like. It's about today and now. It's about this identity. What about the identity that goes to Italy, looks at how Italians did it, and how Michelangelo was working, how Leonardo da Vinci worked? What time did he give to art? Who are these big people who came to him and said, if you paint this, I will give you so much? Do we have that in Zambia? We don't. So policies for me are more for science and technology without art, without humanities. And that means we cannot evolve in the manner we have seen Europe evolved.
Thank you. I'm also curious, during your time working in the Ministry of Education, what kind of influence did you share there regarding the arts, if it was a focus at the time for you?
Oh my God, I thought you wouldn't ask me this question. You know what, colleagues? Before I went to the Ministry of Education, I also counted on what I can do. And I remember moving with very young guys. When I'm here now, all those things we were complaining about when I was lecturing at the University of Zambia, we are going to change them. Little did I know that the way systems and institutions work, they usually work beyond individuals. And if one of you one day will be maybe something, either a member of parliament and so on, and you will realize that what you know alone, if it's not widely shared as values, as attitudes, as characters, personalities with the others, you may discover that your impact will never probably be felt. So really what I'm saying is you need collaboration, you need networking, you need the industry to liaise with the policy makers, with the researchers, with the dons in the universities, with the business people to work together. But the moment we are looking at individuals, how did this one contribute? This one contribute. That one, I can assure you, you may not see anything like that in Zambia. So I encourage you to work together. And please, young colleagues, don't say, me, I'm an engineer, and you walk alone. Another one says, me, I'm an artist, you walk alone. No. All these come together. Look at how Europe developed. If we have a chance, I'll run at some point through how Europe did it.
Thank you, Professor. Gladys, what are your thoughts?
It's a very loaded question, because I don't think I'm in a position where I could walk into the museum and say, or no, not the museum, or walk into a government office and say, change this policy and change this policy and change that policy. I don't think I could do that. I do think that there is space for conversation, and I think, like you say, it's for collaboration, because I feel like if you were to put artists in charge of policy by themselves, I feel like there's going to be the same bias that's already there in that somebody will go in this way. So maybe probably there is need for collaboration with people who understand policy better and understand how it works more better. And maybe just the role of the artist, I think, in that thing would be maybe to be willing to be part of the conversation. So maybe to express and say, you feel like this is important and maybe this has worked or this hasn't worked, and providing that maybe from the artist's perspective. Yeah.
Okay. And we know that a lot of the time when people go and study outside of their home country, sometimes they just never come back. You know, why do you think that is, and what are some of the incentives that would even be required in order for artists to come back once they have gained the same kind of external knowledge that you were speaking of, and the acquired knowledge that you say you gained through your time at Rhodes during your master's? If that had to be brought back, and for you to actually feel comfortable enough to be a part of transforming the arts education, what would that look like for you personally, or also just how you could imagine it?
Personally, I think people in the arts don't come back for several reasons, right? But I'm just going to mention two. I think the first one is the obvious one, like opportunities, facilities, and when you consider art practice out there, it's exciting. People have like professionalized the practice, you have your studios, and it's a profession that people actually consider very well. And you have the ability of more spaces to do shows, there's more things coming. Then when you come back home, there's not really a lot of that happening. And then the second one I would say would be frustration. Because like some people will come back and they're very excited to come back and they want to engage, but then there seems to be like a resistance on the other side. Because change is not always the easiest thing. And the resistance is usually like, we're used to doing things the way we do it and we're not willing to change it. And, like, how can I say it? Nyanja maybe. Like Nachoka Panja, you think you know better and then you're going to come and tell us, this kind of attitude is also a bit of a problem that you find here. Because you're going to find somebody who's been doing something, let's say, for 10 years. It might be great and it might be wonderful, but then maybe it hasn't broken a certain seal. And if somebody comes and says, for you to break a certain seal, you need to do this, that is taken as negative criticism or condescending, or it becomes like, then after a while, some people will try and will be patient enough to work long enough to try to work with people, but some people eventually will be like, I'm doing okay, so when are you staying? And I think it's also the thing to realize that a lot of times when the person's coming in that position, they have more to lose than you, and they could be like, I'm doing fine, I'm doing okay, why am I doing this? And I could be concentrating on doing other stuff. And it's a thing of, if you are going to work on, let's say you're making shows or you're making conversations and you're doing things like this, and like, I think it would help a lot to be in a position to be more receptive to criticism, especially if it's coming from people who have experienced what it's like to practice as an artist outside, whether it's as a curator or as a writer. And you might also probably have some opinions on that, teaching, writing, and having to tell people and say that, okay, you could write better or you could develop your writing in this way, and how the person receives it.
Well, let's talk now a bit about awards in arts and culture. As it was mentioned, Gladys has received numerous awards and received one recently this year, which is the Heinrich Gross Award from Germany. And yes, my question to you regarding that is, do you think that these awards are an integral part of promoting the arts? The obvious thing would be that they are important for you to eat, to sustain yourself, to pay rent in your studio space, to buy your materials. But beyond those things that are maybe clear to us just on a surface level, what does it mean for you personally to receive these awards?
I think awards in the arts industry are important everywhere in the world. Like everywhere people do it, you think of things like the Henrique Gross Award, like you just said, which is a very important award on the African continent. You think of the next generation artists. A lot of artists do want to get the award because, like you say, beyond it helping you financially or getting financial benefit from work, especially a work that's hardly ever commercial, is that it actually opens you up to a whole lot more opportunities. So it's not just that, oh, okay, you've got the money and then you're gonna sit and then you're okay and you're comfortable. So it helps you with providing teams of people that are gonna come and help you with, with your production, that you think about it a whole lot more better and a whole lot more differently. Because before the award, I was working largely by myself and with the help of friends and things like this. But with the award, I'm able to work with teams, I'm able to, and they will advise you on what sort of people can come, and they'll send you to a couple of more opportunities that then open you up to other opportunities. And it also gives you an opportunity to be able to voice your own thoughts and voice your work. You know, it's a form of validation in some form that what you've been doing is meaningful and it's worth it. So that's what I would say.
Great, thank you. And Professor, what is your opinion on art awards in Africa, broadly speaking? Because we can't maybe speak too much about Zambian art awards, or is there, something that you could share with us about that?
At least it means Zambia also recognizes people like you. And it's important for us to begin to recognize professionals, experts, artists, because it starts from there. But the problems that you have hinted, where your question I think is going, has really to do with our position regarding change and the transformation of society. It could be that we all have come to believe and agree that African culture is somehow static in nature. It started like this and it will go like this, meaning we are more probably, you have to investigate this, we are more in tradition than in culture. Remember, culture is dynamic, culture changes. If you look at how Europe evolved, you start from the very early days, before the Renaissance, you come to Enlightenment, you come to, by the time you were talking about industrialization in the 17th century, you had the society which was moving, specifically in art. For example, when you see Europe, what it is today, especially my youngest colleagues here, please don't forget the history that they passed through. There was a time when they said, art is about painting nature, just nature. It's like self-reproduction, you paint yourself. And the artists were praised for reflecting the tree, the grass, the river, exactly as it was in nature. But you see, because they believed in change and transformation of society, at some point they got tired of that perspective. So they came to what they called the new art, or in French, l'art nouveau. And here, they started to do things like, check any encyclopedia on art, you will find out this by yourself. They found things like decorative styles, architecture, interior design, ornamental, plant forms, popular illustration. This was popular especially in the 1890s to 1910. Now, during this period, if you enter a house in Europe today or in America or anywhere else, believe you me, you are going to find something that belongs to this history in their cultural development. What they did during that particular time, but they got tired. You see, when you have a society which wants to evolve, they always look for what is new to add to tradition, to transition to another level. After that, they went in art and crafts, this thing you call guilds of London and so on. They had also a period where people now were looking at stressing the importance of craft, the dignity of labor, for example. By the way, do we have a work ethic in Zambia? Think about it. They had the work ethic, and they put philosophers together, academicians, people, to speak about the work ethic. In Zambia today, if you give work to somebody to decorate something, now I have finished. After he has worked maybe for a very short time, he said, no, I'm finished. He said, no, but it's not clean. Said, what do you mean? You are just a difficult man. No. So we are not building the culture of values which we should. What you call design, art and design today. There was a period when you couldn't do without design, and that became popular among young people. Then there was this thing called classicism. You know very well, let me not waste time, you are all artists. Then there was what is called Impressionism. You remember, where the question of light, became very, very important. And then you had what they call Romanticism. You remember what Romanticism did in art. Before Romanticism period, people believed in order. The house must have balance like this, it must look like this, the windows must match with, the curtains must match with. They got tired, and then they moved into the abstract art, the burlesque. And you remember people like Picasso, Matisse. All these are people who said, this art which you are saying, the colors, all over. No, this is good. Why? Because society had gotten tired of what they could find in nature. In any case, they could see a tree from nature, and they had a camera which was invented. So why continue painting the same tree? No, they want to move to something new. So to answer your question, madam, I strongly think that our culture is based on tradition. I wouldn't say culture for now. Let me say tradition, because we're young. What you need, tradition to evolve, it needs to do two things. What is your tradition plus innovation? If you can be innovating, it means you are upgrading the tradition. You are transitioning to another level. But we have looked at the writing we do, what we were writing when I was at school, what we were drawing at school. I think, colleagues, you are still doing the same today. I haven't seen, if I asked you, where were you in 1964 in terms of art? Where were we in the 1980s in terms of art? Where are we in the 21st century? If you find a significant transition which you can analyze and conclude by convincing us, I will really say, wow, me, I'll give you another personal award.